Are you defensive? Is your partner defensive? Well, this video is for you. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with a defensive partner. And I look forward to sharing with you some strategies that you can use to work past defenses that are existing in your relationship. So stay tuned. How to deal with a defensive partner. Well, let's jump in and begin by defining what is defensiveness. Now, defensiveness is really important to understand because defensiveness is responsible for one of the top issues that couples face in their relationships. So understanding defensiveness and the impact that it can have on your relationship is extremely important. When you think about defensiveness is kind of the opposite of openness. So defensiveness encourages me to shut off and check out, right? Where openness encourages me to open up and lean in, right? So defensiveness is kind of this closed off, disconnected, resistant experience in a relationship. It's one of the four horsemen that Dr. John Gottman talks about, a world-renowned researcher of marriage and family relations, when he talks about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? It's responsible for heavy amounts of destruction. And it typically happens in a relationship when an individual feels or perceives an attack, right? So when an individual feels like that they're under attack in a relationship, that their character is under attack, or their decisions are under attack, or their choices are under attack, their preferences are under attack, right? Like it's typically in those moments that somebody feels like they're under attack that defensiveness happens. And the reason that it's important to understand that your partner is perceiving an attack when they become defensive is because our goal is to work past defenses, right? Our goal is to have influence with our partner, and defensiveness disconnects from influence. So defensiveness is just that, right? It's this kind of closing off, barricading up, resisting in a relationship, not allowing influence. And that's why it's so important to understand. If you've ever tried to communicate with somebody who's defensive, you'll notice that when you communicate with them, you can tell either in their nonverbals, they're not listening, they're not paying attention, right? Or emotionally, they look shut down, checked out. And sometimes you can't even get your full sentence out, right? They'll be responding, cutting in, interrupting, defending themselves as they go. And in extreme cases, sometimes they'll even fire criticisms back, right? That while you're trying to talk, they'll either mock or make fun, or they'll point out hypocrisies in what you're saying, inconsistencies, right? Very argumentative. It's very difficult to get your thoughts and feelings across to somebody who's being defensive. And in a relationship, that's extremely important that we're able to have influence with one another. If I can't reach my partner, what kind of hope do I have that they're going to be able to take a look at the things that are important to me in the relationship? So that kind of leads to one of the first things we need to understand about defensiveness then, right? That if my partner's becoming defensive, there's things that I can do to decrease their defensiveness and things that I can do to increase their defensiveness. And our goal is definitely to decrease their defensiveness as a starting point. Because remember, the more defensive your partner is, the less influence you're going to have with them, right? That they're going to be resistant to your influence, not open. And we want to help them be open to your influence. We want them to listen, right? Try to understand, try to grow, try to take in those things that are important to you. And there's things that you can do that will make them more defensive to that process. There's things that you can do that will make them less defensive to that process. So let's begin with the first one. The first thing that you can do when you're running into defensiveness with your partner is to validate, right? Validation is an extremely important principle when it comes to reducing an individual's defensiveness. Now, if you haven't seen our YouTube video on validation yet, you should check it out. I hear it's very quality and it can be very helpful in breaking down for you some of the steps to really offer strong validation. But in summary, validation is the expression to a partner that I see you. It's a way to communicate to your partner that I see you, I'm understanding you, I'm getting a little bit where you're coming from. And being able to communicate that to your partner, especially in the middle of a conflict or an argument where they might be being defensive, can be really helpful in bringing down those walls a little bit, helping them reduce their defensiveness in a way they might be able to receive some of what you're trying to communicate. So beginning with validation, right? Lean in with validation instead of leaning in with criticism. That's typically something that we'll be prone to do that can build those walls higher, right? Criticism can make your partner want to thicken the walls and make the walls higher in the relationship. Validation can help bring them down. So statements along the lines of, I'm hearing that you are hurting, or I can see that you're upset, or I feel your confusion. So leading into validation like this can be really helpful for your partner to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel understood in such a way that they aren't quite so defensive when you're trying to communicate with them, right? So validation can be a really good one, a really good tool to use. So the second thing that you can do when you're working with a defensive partner is an apology, right? An apology is really effective in bringing down the defenses of your partner. You'll remember that defensiveness happens when your partner is perceiving an attack, right? Where they feel that their character is under attack, or their ideas are under attack, or their needs or preferences are under attack, right? That their reality is under attack. That's why defensiveness is happening. So an apology sends the opposite message, right? Just like the validation concept, the apology says, I see my part, right? I'm connected to my part. And it kind of helps set the record straight. It helps your partner realize that you're not coming at them to accuse them of being terrible, right? Or a monster. Your goal isn't to tear them down. Your goal is to make peace with them. And an apology is a really nice step forward to encourage their vulnerability, to encourage their openness, right? Now, you might not feel like you did a lot in the relationship that would require an apology, right? Let's say that you came home and they were really upset from the moment that you walked into the door, right? Like they were really upset. They were acting defensive and withdrawn, and as you tried to talk with them, they were pretty short in the interaction. An apology can sound like this, right? Where you feel like maybe you didn't do a whole lot, but you're not really sure why they're being defensive. It might sound like this: Hey babe, I can tell that you're really having a hard time. I'm so sorry that you're struggling. I'm so sorry that something's bothering you today, and if I'm part of it, I don't want to be part of that, right? So that can be what an apology can sound like. It's way better than leaning in with a criticism, right? Like, what's your problem? What's your deal? You know, that's probably not going to help their defenses come down a little bit. So phrases like, I'm so sorry you feel like you don't matter to me, or I apologize for not listening to you better, or I can see that I was harsh. I'm sorry for that, right? Leaning in with an apology like this can be a really helpful way to increase their openness, to increase their vulnerability, and to decrease the defensiveness that you're running into. So the third one that I wanted to share with you today is an affirmation. Affirmations are things that I can share with my partner that help them see that I am connected to their goodness, right? That I'm connected to their value, that I'm connected to the benefit that they are in my life, the blessing and the gift that they are, that they're praiseworthy, right? That's what an affirmation is. So affirmations can sound like, you do matter to me, or I love you, you are precious to me, my life is so blessed by you, you are worthy of my best efforts. Things along these lines, right, that affirm your partner's value and worth. Again, if defensiveness happens when somebody perceives that they're under attack, offering them affirmations, just like offering them apologies or offering them validation, offering them affirmations can sometimes help bring those defensive walls down, right? That they feel less under attack, which means they may be more open to what you're trying to communicate, because what you're trying to communicate doesn't sound so much like a harsh criticism, right? So affirmations can be really effective as well. These three strategies, right? Validating, apologizing, offering an affirmation, right? These three strategies give you the best chance for success to help a defensive partner bring down their defenses. Now, these three things can be counterintuitive because oftentimes my first instinct when my partner's being defensive, if they're behind a defensive wall or defensive barrier, my first instinct is to get a sharper spear to stab through that wall or to get a bigger hammer to break down that wall, right? And those exist in relationships in the form of criticisms, right? I'll get sharper with my tone. I'll get louder with my tone. I'll get more boisterous in the interaction. I'll get more accusatory. I'll become more critical. I might even be contemptuous in the relationship, right? If I feel like I'm not getting through to them. And then finally, I might put up my own wall, right? I might stonewall in the relationship. And all of these ways just encourage defensiveness. Defensiveness is meant to protect against perceived attacks, which means I'm just going to provoke more defensiveness if that's the approach that I take. Our goal is to provoke less defensiveness, right? And in order to do that, we want to do things like validation or apologizing or affirmations, right? Things that signal to my partner, you can bring down those walls. You can be open, right? That I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to come at you harshly, right? I might have some critical things that we need to talk about, but I'm going to work not to criticize you as we talk about those things, right? You can check out this YouTube video as well if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the language that you can use during conflict with your partner. So I hope these 3 strategies are helpful to you. In the comments below, share with us one that you try out this week, right? If you run into defensiveness with your partner, tell us a little bit about the defensiveness you were running into and one of these that you attempted to try on this week. I can tell you that if you get in the habit of validating, apologizing, and affirming more in your relationship, you're likely going to deal with less and less defensiveness with your partner over time. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so grateful to be with you again today, and we look forward to talking with you again soon. Take care.